Let me tell you about ProHealthConnect.com. It's transforming healthcare payments, providing retailers a seamless process for over-the-counter and healthy benefit programs. By connecting retailers, health plans, and payment processors, ProHealth Connect creates one powerful, unified network. They empower independent grocers and pharmacies to accept health benefit cards without changing how they do business. With over 10,000 locations nationwide, helping more than 1.3 million people access the care and nutrition they need. Go to ProHealthConnect.com.
The Larry Kudlow Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
So I misspoke. April 6th deadline for a deal with Iran or not, and further military action. It's Monday. Today's the 4th, tomorrow's the 5th, Monday's the 6th. I don't remember the time. I think it was 8 p.m. Eastern Time, but I could be wrong about that. In any event, we're going to bring in my very dear friend, Steve Forbes, the great Steve Forbes, chairman and editor-in-chief of Forbes Media, and his latest book is Inflation, What It Is, Why It's Bad, and How to Fix It. So, Steve, welcome. Thank you for doing this. You're our lead, and I will say happy and Holy Easter to you.
And to Judy.
Yeah, and to Sabina as well. You're great to do this. So, anyway, another Steve Forbes prediction comes true. For several weeks you wanted a speech from President Trump, and you got it Thursday evening. Of course, I retreated. I went on for a couple of days of vacation. I'm sure you were on the show. But what did you think of the speech, and what do you think of the situation right now?
Well, I'm delighted he delivered the speech. I'm delighted he hammered home in the speech what the stakes are. My only regret is that he didn't do this at the beginning, so it would have drowned, I think, put the media in the proper perspective when all the criticism started. In terms of where we're at, I'm hoping, I think the president is going to see this thing through. We have to keep hitting. The Israelis have to keep hitting. And I think if they keep hitting, especially the internal security mechanisms there, the Revolutionary Guard and those assets, you will get regime change. And then the key thing after that is to make it clear to the world that the Strait of Hormuz, the Red Sea, the East China Sea, the China Sea, South China Sea, we believe in freedom of navigation. It goes back to Thomas Jefferson when we got rid of the Barbary pirates over 200 years ago. Freedom of navigation. And if we secure that, that'll be a huge victory.
You know, I love the Barbary pilots, and the freedom of navigation is so important. As you say, a couple of hundred years, it's a worldwide principle for the high seas. I want to read. I guess it was yesterday. Yeah, April 3rd. I have my dates wrong. April 6th is Monday. April 3rd was yesterday. April 4th is today. Yesterday, the president put out on Truth, his media site, his social media site. Let me read. With a little more time, we can easily open the Hormuz Strait, take the oil, and make a fortune. It would be a gusher for the world. President Donald J. Trump. That was yesterday morning. That's essentially the Venezuelan model, and that's what I hope he goes for. But he's been a little bit, sometimes he's ambiguous, Steve Forbes, on that. And I don't think he should be ambiguous about liberating and reopening the Strait of Hormuz and, frankly, controlling Iranian oil sales, revenues, and disbursements.
Well, and I think if you get a new government, and eventually I think we will if we keep hammering away, one of the things we have to be on guard against is while our military and the Israeli military are performing absolute miracles in terms of these operations, is the Iranians and their allies, evil allies, think that they can win this with politics, not on the battlefield, but with politics, by undermining the resolve of the United States. We've seen that ugly picture in the past. And I think President Trump making that address, I hope to help dissipate that illusion. But you have mentioned in the past The Economist magazine, Foreign Policy, a big journal in the foreign policy world, has an article which sounds like was written by the mullahs about how Iran is going to win this war. And so they are counting on a political victory. And we have to make very clear there's going to be no political victory. the essence of this regime is going. Strait of Hormuz is going to be open. That oil is going to be coming out. We'll be making negotiations and deals on that. But the key thing is the oil is going to flow. You're going to get a better Persian regime. I wish they'd changed the name back to Persia, but anyway, it's going to be a better world. And one of the things that we should keep in mind, even as we suffer now at the pump, is that those prices will be coming down, as you pointed out time and again, and others. There's plenty of oil in the world. It's just a matter of getting it delivered and refined. It's all there. And so that's why the futures market prices are still very different from what we have in the spot price. So, again, I think if people start to see in the next few weeks when this thing winds up, as I think it will in the next few weeks, they start to see gasoline prices start to come down. The key thing is the trend. If the trend is right, then the American people will cut you slack to think, okay, this thing is getting back to where it should be.
Well, it's a small price to pay. As you have said, I've said, Jack Keane, General Keane talks about this a lot. It's a small price to pay, a temporary blip up in oil prices, which actually, in inflation-adjusted terms, Steve, is down around $60. It's not really up over 100. I mean, we've had, in inflation in real terms, we had $200 oil back in 2008 and $140 to $150 oil for much of the first decade in the 2000s, as people say. So it's still a small price to pay to stop the nuclear and terrorist threat of Iran.
And that's why the president should go forward. You keep hammering home on this, and I think it's a great idea to have a new bill, reconciliation bill. Part of it is 2 great tax cuts on capital gains and personal and corporate tax rates, but also $200 billion plus for the military. If we have a disastrous world where the bad guys are seen as winning, that $200 billion or whatever we now spend on the Iran war will be pennies compared to what we're going to have to do in the future. And the president said in the past, and I wish he'd say it again, if he doesn't do this right now and truly open the Strait of Hormuz and make sure that's never closed, we get a different Iranian regime, then 2 years, 10 years down the road, his successor, 3 years down the road, his successor is going to have a disaster, and people are going to wonder, why didn't we do it? We've avoided, as you've hammered home time and again, 47 years. We've always hoped for the best with this regime. Now, finally, we've got to deal with it, and future generations will be grateful that a big potential disaster, nuclear-armed Iran, missiles reaching the United States capability is gone forever.
Let Century Management Solutions get you to your next medical appointment. They specialize in non-emergency medical transportation, connecting patients to care, safety, reliability, and on time. Their advanced technology platform seamlessly coordinates patients, healthcare providers, insurers, and transportation partners all in one powerful network. With over 200 trusted transportation providers, they deliver scalable solutions backed by real-time tracking and complete transparency. Go to SENTRYMS.com.
Think Verizon is expensive? Think again. Anyone can bring their AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today and we'll give you a better deal. So bring us your bill. Walk in, run in, pogo stick in, teleport if you can. Ride on the back of a rollerblading yak or fly in on the wings of a majestic falcon. Any way you can, bring your AT&T or T-Mobile bill to a Verizon store today, and we'll give you a better deal on the best network. Based on RootMetrics Best Overall Mobile Network Performance, U.S. Second Half 2025. All rights reserved. Must provide very recent postpaid consumer mobile bill in the name of the person redeeming the deal. Additional terms, conditions, and restrictions apply.
I want to come back to you're very kind on the reconciliation package. I want to come back to that in a minute. But Hormuz, Steve Forbes, just thinking, Hormuz is Iran's last stand, right? It's really their only remaining deterrent, and
it's their Hail Mary, so to speak.
That's right. But the war. I mean, I don't know if this is true, but the article in the Wall Street Journal was a pretty good article. It was a news article, but it was pretty good, saying basically you have to retake and reopen Hormuz in order to really win the war. I mean, if you make a deal or you have a ceasefire, Steve, but somehow Iran is, still on top of Hormuz, it will be a false victory.
That's right, and it will be seen by our adversaries in China, North Korea, and elsewhere, in Russia, as a defeat for the United States, and other nations will say, okay, the U.S. does not have this backbone, the stick-to-itiveness to do things as we did for most of the Cold War, and therefore the U.S. is a declining power. Yes, Hormuz, the regime has to go. Hormuz has to be open. Otherwise, amazingly, despite our great military, it'll be seen as a defeat. We'll lose politically what we gained militarily.
Yes, I agree. I mean, but my gut feeling, I have a lot of confidence and faith. President Trump understands this. He knows how to play his cards. And I know he sometimes says things that sound ambiguous, but I don't think so, because we're still held captive to world oil prices. We may not need any Middle Eastern oil anymore, but we're still held captive to the global price, $100, whatever it's going to be, and that's not a good thing. So I agree with you, and I have a lot of faith in him that he'll make the right call. Steve Forbes, I want to take a quick break for you. You're wonderful to do this, our lead here on Easter weekend. And I want to talk about your piece, lovely piece. Republicans must laser focus on passing Kudlow's economic plan. Well, you contributed to that too, in spirit, if not in fact. It was very kind of you to do that. We're going to talk about some domestic economic policies. A wonderful piece for which I am most grateful. Steve's latest, Republicans must laser focus on passing Kudlow's economic plan. Well, it isn't solely my plan. It's things that we believed in for years and years and years. Steve Forbes, the great leader on tax policy and monetary policy, including his important presidential runs, which in many ways had big influence on Republican policies. So, Steve, we got to raise $200 billion, some odd, for the Pentagon to complete their mission and keep our military strong. And that will include, there's a $1.5 trillion budget proposal on the table. We've got the Save America Act for the voter IDs, photograph IDs, and citizenship proof. There's no reason why some, imaginative hard work, and that's going to require money, and that makes it a fiscal issue. No reason why it can't get through the parliamentarian if it's done right, as you note in this article. And you've got I think the potential, and I know you do too, the potential for some pro-growth tax reform. I mean, for heaven's sakes, why should we pay capital gains tax on inflated assets? It's an illusion. It's long past due, right? We should get rid of that and just pay just the real gains. And then the possibility of some income tax reduction. I love that. There's no reason why they can't. And by the way, there'll be offsets. Now you've got this huge movement, Steve, of fraud, chasing fraud. They put J.D. Vance in charge of it. Already, I heard Emmett Oz talk about it on the Bret Baier show last night. Huge fraud. At least $550 billion in the GAO, and who knows how much for Medicaid and other social programs. It's there. The Republicans just have to do it. They've just got to go after it.
That's right, and especially as these things are scored, as you know, over a 10-year period. And this is what, unfortunately, did not come through with DOGE, was that we're not taking things away from people as much as we're finding out where the money actually goes. And it's astonishing, especially with Medicaid and Medicare, how much money is actually wasted. It does not go for the health of the American people. So if we take a 10-year perspective, sort of a scalpel approach, each year you dig and dig and dig, like that wonderful reporter did in Minnesota with the Leering Center, you're going to find savings after savings after savings. And another thing I wish our Republicans would get some confidence on is growth rates, 1.8%, 2%. If we go back to our historic average, which is no reason why we shouldn't have 3.5, by golly, it becomes a revenue gusher in the next generation, compounding. So I wish the Republicans would act with confidence instead of getting snarled up in parliamentary worries and this, that, and the other thing, and be confident and say, this is how we get America really moving again. People, I think, will respond, especially if you cut those tax rates before the election. Come on.
Oh, boy, do I love that. I just absolutely love that. I mean, in fairness now, the big, beautiful bill has huge refunds and also a number of tax cuts, which are offsetting in the oil shock in the first quarter. And then, of course, the 100% depreciation. But, Russell Vogt, the OMB budget director, and our friend Kevin Hassett at the NEC, they got a 3% growth rate in the president's budget that was just put out. So good for them. It's 3%. I mean, we would have preferred 3.5 or 4. Yeah. Laffer thinks it's 4 plus. And he may be right, who knows. But I'm just saying they did put in 3%. And they have to be bold. You're right about that. I mean, it's an election issue. It's a growth issue. And people would really, even modest reductions in the income tax rates, down through the middle class area would be so well received. And it's an economic booster shot. It's got to be.
Yes, and you combine that with capital gains, and it would be a real boost for the economy, sort of an Artemis version for the economy. And in terms of what the Republicans, though, we got to keep hammering. They have to come across as actually believing this, confident on this, instead of tentative and faltering and trying to negotiate. No, be firm. When people see firmness and they like what they hear, and by the way, not to sound too nerdy, but the two brackets that would really help middle-class people are the 22 and 24% brackets.
Yes.
What they should do is expand the bands, so to speak, the thresholds, and reduce those two. If you just reduce those two to, say, 15%, boy, that would be real rocket fuel for the economy. It would also help our problems with the blue state with these deductions. I know we raised them, but this would settle that once and for all.
The 15%, I fought for that when I was at the NEC in the White House. And I fought for that, by the way, in the COVID giveaways. I mean, we got a lot of tax cuts, surprisingly, in the COVID giveaways, particularly for corporations, particularly for the, various loan loss issues, forward and backward. But we never got to the brackets. And you're right. You can raise the threshold and then lower the rate a few points. You'd have a major incentive, work efforts and investment incentives for those middle income brackets. The other thing, Steve,
and one quick thing to keep in mind on that. We saw that in the 80s. Once America starts really moving again, other countries, especially our distraught friends in Europe, will start to see this is the way to go, and this makes America more powerful, not just in economics, but as an example to the world. We saw that in the 80s where 50 countries followed Reagan's example on reducing tax rates. So we got to lead the way. So we should do it for global reasons as well.
I know. We may have to send you back to Europe and can persuade them. And, you were doing what was the job you had? You were
overseeing Radio Free Europe and Radio Liberty,
right?
And using the freedom of information to undermine the old Soviet communism.
Yeah.
And by the way, we got to get our friend Arthur, maybe you and Steve Moore, over to Japan and help our Prime Minister there to get some supply side policy so Japan can be growing again, which would be a great counter to China.
Boy, I tried so hard to convince them when I was in there, but it's a tough sell. I just want to say it is a little bit nerdy, and legislative process is not the issue. The issue is getting the work done on saving America and the and the Pentagon and the tax cuts. But the only way they're going to do this, and the only way they're going to get the money for Homeland Security and TSA and so forth and so on, the only way is through 50. Reconciliation means 50 votes, the vice president's the 51st vote. It's the only way they'll do it. They'll never get 60 votes. The Democrats don't have any moderates left in the party, maybe John Fetterman, but I doubt it on taxes. And that's why reconciliation, I know it's nerdy and I know it's process, but that's the way to do it. They can get 50 votes for a good package. It would be a compromise among different wings of the Republican Party, okay? The growth wing and the citizenship voting and the cutting, fraud and waste, fraud and abuse and all that. The only way is reconciliation. You just have to get 50 GOP votes, and then Vance, J.D. Vance, will be the 51st vote, and that's how you get it through, Steve. That's the only way.
That's right, and people don't care about the process. They want to know what's the result, and I think when it shows up in paychecks and with people's pay, that'll be the ultimate success. They'll be happy that it got done.
So one other thing, while I got you, you think the stock market bottomed this past week? You had one day was 1,100 points, I think, on the Dow. I'm just looking at. We do a half hour of stock market stuff later in the show, but the Dow was up 1,338 points, and the S&P 500 was up almost 3.5% for the week. You think it's a bottom? You think the correction's over?
I'm not sure, and I think investors, unless they're good traders and getting the kind of information you provide, and we're going to be providing this morning, is that you get some surprise in Iran, something happens, a plane gets shot down, a tanker gets hit, or something like that in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks. So you're going to get these ups and downs. The key thing is to be steady, have a sense of where this country's ultimately going to go when this war ends, hopefully in a good way, and that should be your guide rather than trying to rely on daily headlines.
All right. Steve Forbes, the great Steve Forbes, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief of Forbes Media. Fantastic. Thank you, Steve. Can't thank you enough. We'll take a break, folks, and do some economics with John Carney and Mike Faulkner. I'm Kudlow. We'll be right back.
The Larry Kudlow Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Listen to this podcast now
On the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Leadership Thread with Dr. Peggy Polonis.
I'm Dr. Peggy Polonis. Join me on each episode where I unravel the story that shaped leaders, tracing the thread that led them where they are today. Because leadership isn't born in adulthood. And thank you once again for joining us on the Leadership Thread, education, ethics, and sustainability.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.